I will never get tired of talking about the transformative power of education. And I think that's like at the core of the second course, but more broadly, like education is such a core tenet of our society. And so making sure more people have access to high quality education is like a personal passion. And I think I will never get tired of talking about ways that we can make that better for all people.
I love that. Everybody, welcome back. It is me, Justin Dallas. You know me, you love me. I'm excited because today we're talking about learning and learning as a curiosity. So we all were in school. Some of us loved learning, some of us hated it. But at what point did we stop that curiosity of learning something new? Well, today I'm sitting down with the Second Course ATX and Sydney, who created the program. So welcome, Sydney, to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. Well, I'm excited that you are coming on today because I first found you on TikTok, kind of like when you were exploring and showing your ads for the event. So I ended up going to one of them. It was, ironically enough, about podcasts. But I just wanted to know, what kind of got you into, starting the Second Course?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I do feel like it was something that I fell into. I've always been someone who has wanted to know and understand how I can build community around shared learning. So I am the first person to take a knitting class, a needlepoint class, to learn a new hobby in like a group fitness setting, because I love the experience of like learning alongside other people and being in the trenches, and maybe it doesn't click and then it suddenly clicks, and having that opportunity to really engage in a deeper way than you can in like a digital space, right? Where sometimes we lack the nuance and the opportunity to really have deeper, meaningful conversations.
So are you a serial hobbyist?
I am a serial hobbyist.
What are your current hobby obsessions right now?
Oh, I'm a board game person through and through. So board games evolved to tile games, to now I play like American Mahjong, which has been like my recent type of fixation, I suppose. I knit, I sew, I needlepoint. I do yoga, though not like well. So I think it's more of like an amateur situation.
The intention's there. Okay.
Yeah. I think I just love the process of truly learning something new. And I feel like it gives you an opportunity to like connect with people that maybe you otherwise wouldn't have things in common with. Like, I feel like when you expose yourself to a lot of different things, you at least know a little bit, right? Where somebody's like, oh, I'm a huge reader, or I go to yoga. And I'm like, oh, great. Like I just learned how to do this pose right the other day. It's just sort of this immediate trust that you build through shared experience.
And I think about that too, like whenever, because I love starting hobbies too. And I feel like that is my hobby, is like starting new hobbies. But like part of me thinks about it and I'm like, is it because I want to learn something new, or is it because I'm craving community? And like, I think it goes hand in hand. Like, I think, yes, we want to learn something. We want to, we want to expand on what we know, but also we do crave that community, especially like for me, for example, like I work from home. So like I am excited to like go to a dance class or go practice tennis or do like yoga or mindfulness.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's a really good point about community and hobbies and like the ways that we express that. And I think it can look different for everyone. And I also think it's okay if not everything's a community, right? I think it's okay if it's a club. I think it's okay if it's a touch point or just something you occasionally want to engage in. And that's the exciting thing that I think about the second course, is that every month it's a new topic and a new expert, so you're not entering the room with people who already know what they're talking about, right? It's like a low barrier entry that if you want to come 1 month because that resonates with you, and then we don't see you until a few months later, like you're always welcome back, and that's an exciting part of it.
So it's like you're coming in, you're learning a new subject. It's kind of like IRL TED Talk, or coming in and like revisiting like college campuses or like that learning experience. And like we'll get into like more of like the second course and kind of the cool things you're doing. But before then, I kind of want to talk about the human behind the second course. So like obviously like you decided to start this program. What were you like as a kid? Like were you a very curious kid?
I was definitely a curious kid. My mom would definitely say that I was a yapper. She might not use that term.
We love
she's
a yap.
Like very talkative. I was, separated from my peers to get me to stop talking in class occasionally. That was always on my little report card that would come home.
Okay. I was going to ask, what kind of student were you? Were you like Were you like the distractor? Were you like asking 100 questions, or were you like the person observing, you know?
Yeah, I was definitely the kid asking why. Like, I
Yeah.
really love to understand why things work and why things happen the way that they do. I think I was like in second grade and we were gonna get school uniforms, and I like met with my principal to talk about why we were getting school uniforms, and we'd like never had them before. So I was definitely curious in that way.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I really did love learning. And
Yeah.
I remember I would create, I don't know if you remember this, but we had these like manila folders, like those
Yes.
yellow manila folders,
Mm-hmm.
and I would tape two of them together and make like a mini trifold and
Okay.
like design and color things about different topics. I remember I did one on like mermaids.
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like, I'm gonna get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
I'm doing a trifold manila folder presentation on mermaids. I did one on the Titanic, which I think every like nerdy kid
Yeah.
has had a
Mhm.
Titanic phase for sure. And so yeah, I loved learning. It really excited me, and I feel like I was able to do it in a way that also allowed me to express myself creatively. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was a really cool thing about it too.
I love that. And like that's another like big misconception that like I like to tell people is like you can be both creative and like quote unquote like academic. Like there is no like black and white like separation. Like I think they both feed hand in hand, and like I love like learning new things so that I can become more creative, you know?
Yeah,
Um,
sure.
but one of the things I wanted to ask, so you talked about mermaids and you talked about the Titanic. What were you upset? Like, did you have an obsession as a child? Like, for me, I know like I was obsessed with Greek mythology as a kid. I don't know why. Like, I read
Yes.
all the books. I had big story books. Like, did you have like a niche interest or an obsession as a kid?
You know, I also loved Greek mythology,
Uh-huh.
but I think like I'm a serial hobbyist today because I had so many interests when I
Yeah.
was a kid, you know?
Yeah.
I was also a huge reader, so I think whatever I was reading at the time, I was like, "Oh, this is my new thing. Like
Yeah.
I'm going to be a writer." I was really obsessed with the idea of being a writer, and so
Mhm.
I was just reading as much as I could, and I think that
Okay.
really helped round me out, but it
Mhm.
definitely gave me phases where I'm like, I'm obsessed with the Titanic and knowing everything about that. I'm obsessed with, you know, Greek mythology, for example, and all of the Percy Jackson books, and then going
Okay.
into like the bigger books. And yeah, so I'm right there with you.
I love that. So okay, so you were a yapper. You yapped a lot and you asked a lot of questions, which I mean, same. So if your friends had to describe you, and they had to describe your niche interests, like what would they say? So like if they, you know, we were talking a little bit behind the scenes, like about your
Yeah.
friend. If they had to describe Sydney, how would they describe what your like special niche interest is? You know.
Ooh, that's a really good question. You know, I really do feel like I am the gatherer of my friends. Like,
Hmm.
I love having people in my space. And I always say, anything that is mine is yours. Like,
Yeah.
even just on Tuesday night, last night, I guess now, when we're recording this, last night, I had a bunch of girls over who I'd never met in person.
Okay.
I am in a book club, and I texted them. There's like 500 people in this book club. And I just sent out, I was like, I want to have a game night at my house. Anyone is welcome. And I had 6 girls show up from that
Wow.
invitation,
Okay.
who I'd never met. They had never met each other. And they were like willing to come to a stranger's apartment, which would I recommend that? I don't know. But
Yeah.
it was my apartment. So I was like feeling good about it. And so they came in, and I had like charcuterie and drinks
I
and
love
board games
that.
out. And we had such a great time with each
Yeah.
other. And so I think that that is like my dominant trait.
Okay.
Is that I just like love bringing people together. Like that is a
Hosting.
true joy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Hosting people, welcoming people into my space. I think they would also call me like persistent.
Okay.
I'm definitely, when I get my mind on something, like I am moving full steam ahead.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there are worse things to be called. I think stubborn could
No,
be a
I think
variation of that.
like determined. Like I love when like you always see those TikToks of like I love when someone says I can't do something because then that makes you even more determined
Yeah.
to like do like that is me down. Like I like hello podcasts. But no, I love that and like I need to get into the board game. So like recently me and my friends we started having game night and we got into Sequence.
Yes.
I'm it's new obsession. Like if you haven't watched
Love
like if
that.
you haven't played it, Sequence, it's amazing. Me and my partner, we always win. We're like we don't know if it's telepathy or what, but we're always like locking in.
Locked in.
Yeah.
Okay, if you like that and also 2-player game, there's like
Mhm.
Wavelength, which
Okay,
is which I think you've
yeah.
seen it on TikTok probably, right? It's like that circle and where you will say some phrase and then somebody has to associate it with how close it is on the spectrum. So like you move that little arrow. probably doing a bad job at explaining it. But you move the arrow
Yeah.
and then you'll like reveal what the answer was and you'll be like, oh, I was dead on or I was like way off. And
Yes, I have
yeah.
seen that. Okay. And this isn't a board game, but we've been playing Phase 10.
I've never played that.
Okay, it's so good. It's kind of like Uno like on crack or steroids. Like it's super competitive. Like you play in a big group and it can go anywhere from like 30 minutes to like 2 to 3 hours. Like
Oh my
it's you
gosh.
just keep playing and it's so juicy and good. Like that is a fun game to just like kick back and like play for like a good long time.
Oh, I love that.
But I kind of want to ask, okay, so we learned about you as like a kid. What is your current obsession? And it could be about anything right now.
Ooh, I have so many.
Hmm.
I'm like, let me think about
A
it.
collector of things, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a collector of things. That is very true in the metaphorical and literal sense.
What about like recently, like this past week, like
Yeah.
something that you were like, ooh, I'm kind of obsessed.
You know, I've been getting a lot of content around reality TV as like
Mhm.
an anthropological study. And so we did like touch base on this a little
Mhm.
bit. And I love like a Substack article, a video essay, anything like that, that is finding some way to contextualize what we
Yes.
see in the world, right? Because I think it's really easy, especially with like reality TV having a predominantly female audience, to be like,
Mhm.
this is frivolous, this
Yeah.
is silly.
It's not
But
golf.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But then you see researchers who are using this as a way to tell us the things we value in society and like our hierarchical structure and why we continue to live in a patriarchy. And you're like, you know what? This is like valuable to us.
It's anthropology. It literally influences the culture. There's this one TikToker. I forget her name all the time. She has like a kind of like a buzz cut hair, bleach. She has glasses, and she'll just
Yes.
give her commentary on it, like Housewives Atlanta.
Yeah.
I tune into her like after I know there's a new Atlanta episode. I'm going straight to her page and seeing like, okay, what is she talking about? And like sometimes she'll ramble for like 5 minutes,
Yeah.
and it's so good. Like I'm obsessed.
So good.
Yeah.
I know. I love stuff like that. And I think like those are the rabbit holes where I'll see a
Mhm.
TikTok video and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, this is the new frontier, right? Like
Yeah.
why is nobody else talking about this? And so all those reality TV Substack articles do have me around their finger right now.
And like it's so crazy like how TikTok recognizes patterns and they basically like kind of dictate like what I'm into and like what my obsession is because
Yeah.
like I'll get into like I got really into gardening recently at the beginning of the summer.
Oh, awesome.
So I got into like gardening TikToks, like ways to like landscape and like now all of a sudden like we're redoing our backyard and I'm buying plants and we just bought like a lemon tree and a pomegranate tree and like
That's so awesome.
it was all thanks to TikTok and I'm just like what is free will, you know?
Yeah.
At that
No,
point.
it's such a good point on like what gets exposure and obviously in a media landscape and like a much broader landscape that is much more complicated, but I think we see it in like a little microcosm on our FYP.
What I mean, like, what is the most random thing you've learned from TikTok? Because at this point, like, I use it more than Google. Like, if I need to know something, I'll go to TikTok and I'll be like, changing battery or changing tire instead of because you know in like back then like it'd be like
Yeah.
oh just Google it now
Right.
our like now this in time like day and age it's like oh just TikTok it you
Yeah.
know?
That's a good point. And I also think there's like a visual component, right? Where it's like
Mhm.
if I'm looking up how to change a tire,
Not reading all
right?
that yeah
I'm not reading all that. But if like I can see a video, and I also think it allows people who are already teachers, like maybe not in a traditional sense.
yeah
There's a TikTok account of this like man who I think has like daughters maybe.
Mhm.
And it's basically like things your dad didn't teach you or like wouldn't have taught you.
I love
And
that
it's aimed towards primarily men. And so it's all
Yeah.
of these things that he would have taught sons if he had them or currently teaches his daughters. And these like videos of like things that you should essentially know.
Yeah.
Like maybe changing batteries or oil or whatever else you
Yeah.
change in a car.
I love
Um,
that okay
Yeah, and so it's like he may not be a teacher in a traditional sense, but like people are still learning from him, and he's able to do that because he has a platform.
And that goes back to the like the idea of like curiosity and learning. Like I think there is really a yearning for wanting to know more or figure something out. And I feel like
Yeah.
our day and age, like it's so easy to access information, especially like TikTok. Like for me, I prefer visual learning. So like I love going and seeing like someone showing me how to correctly do it. So
Yeah.
if you could get a degree in a hypothetical sense from TikTok
Yeah.
based off of like what you've learned the most or your algorithm,
Ooh.
what would your degree from TikTok be?
Ugh, this is so good. I'm like, what little rabbit
I
hole
know.
in
Yeah, we
my
love rabbit
rabbit
holes.
trail am I gonna go down right now? Um, I really think that it is. There's a guy on TikTok, and of course, I can't remember his name right now, but I feel like if you saw him, you would know him.
Yeah.
And he has like coined this term called American cheating, which is
Okay.
basically the idea that like if two people engage in an affair
Yeah.
or some sort of scandal surrounding their relationship, but they end up together, then like
Oh.
in American culture, it's inappropriate to bring up the affair because like now they're together. And he has much more like theory infused into
Yeah.
this, a lot more academic foundation than I do in my
Yeah.
explanation. But I think something like that, like just sort of how we understand our culture in a much more technical sense and a way that we can like apply it more broadly. Because I'm very guilty of being a consumer of media
Yeah.
and not always like a critical one.
Yeah.
And so things like that, I'm like recognizing those patterns and like understanding the theory behind things, especially when it's like messy and scandalous.
Oh, we love like a messy, juicy thing to just like scroll on. I think
A PhD in messiness.
a PhD. Okay, opposed back. Okay, we love that. I feel like you know what? I think mine would honestly be in like cooking, because
Yeah.
growing up, like I love my mom. Shout out. Like she wasn't the cook in our family like our dad was,
Oh yeah.
and like especially like being like Latino, like I wanted to really like learn how to cook more like traditional Latin meals, but like on a healthier sense or like in a healthier
Yeah.
way. So like I've learned so much from TikTok of like how to make, chicken tortilla soup, but like with this alternative or things like that. And like
Yeah.
I learned it from like someone else's like grandma or like Thea, which has
Yeah.
been really cool.
Oh, I love that. And that's such a great point of, because I do think that like in my family, my grandparents are from Mexico, and so they have so many recipes that are literally just living
Yeah.
in my abuelita's brain.
Mhm.
Like she's like, oh, it's a handful, a dash. Like I just kind of measure with my
Eyeball
heart,
it, yeah.
right? And I'm like, okay, how am I gonna document this, right? Like you're the only person who knows your recipe for pozole that we have every New Year's Eve. Like,
Yeah.
we have to save the recipes.
We need to like save the ancient text. Like we're losing the ancient text.
No, seriously. I'm gonna start showing her the TikTok videos and be like, does this feel close to what you're doing in the kitchen?
Yes
Like,
or no?
Let's try to restructure this.
There was like an old like I think it was like Facebook videos or even TikTok where there was like an old grandma from Mexico cooking, and like she would go live, and like I think her grandson like just started filming her, and she like got like 1 million followers just like teaching, like, and she was like in a small like little like village, and she would just like cook for hours, and like people learned how to cook, and like that's what I'm like, that's when I'm like, I believe in like culture, I believe in humanity, like this is what I love about like knowledge sharing and information sharing.
Yeah, it is crazy how like everyone has their little corner of the internet, and then you like stumble across it, and all of a sudden you're connected and you're learning and you're exposed to new things, and that's like a cool part of being online.
And that's kind of like what I love about what you're doing with the second course. So you're like essentially bringing knowledge and information, people with knowledge, but also people seeking information, and you're creating an IRL space where people are getting to essentially come to a watering hole, learn more information. Where did this idea come from? If it's all on TikTok, it's online, like where did it come from to kind of start something in person and like create a community?
Yeah. Well, so the idea of bringing like experts and lectures into bars is by no means my original thought.
Yeah.
But I did always know, and like I shared, I love the experience of shared learning. And when I graduated with my master's, I realized that I really miss being in a classroom and like having an opportunity to really engage deeper with the world around me or the things that I'm learning in what is somewhat a safe space, right? Like that is a place, if not then when, right?
Yeah.
Of like asking questions, of considering new things, of maybe even pushing back in some ways with like your own perspectives. And I think when you're out in the real world and you're going to happy hours and events, there's not always a really clear space on, is this a place where I can disagree? Is this a place where I can have meaningful conversation about the things that I'm seeing in the world or concerns I have or issues that are impacting us, right? And so I wanted to be really intentional about creating that sort of environment that can be respectful but can also be challenging.
Yeah.
And so when I thought about what that looked like, I was like, maybe it's dinner parties. And so I started with my friends, which I think is like the best advice anyone has ever given me, is like, look around you and start there. So I invited all my friends over for dinner. I had like people talk about their jobs, talk about things they're thinking about. And from there, it slowly began to evolve until like June of last year, where I was like, what if this was bigger, right? What if this
Yeah.
was more people? What if this was more diverse perspectives, people you don't know, like strangers meeting and talking? And it felt like the right format to be able to bring in experts to lead these conversations, because I think people are craving having that authoritative voice, right? Having that person who really knows what they're talking about in an environment where anyone can be an expert, in an environment where anyone can post a TikTok video with
Yeah.
absolute certainty, right? People want to receive information that they can trust. And so that was kind of how that format, I think, came together for me.
And that's kind of like my second question is like, what problem was this trying to solve? And like, I mean, you can speak on it yourself, but like, I also think like it's that professionalism or that expert level, like that subject matter expert of like this person, you know, they studied this or they have a background in this and they can, anybody has an opinion nowadays, but they're actually a subject matter expert, you know?
Yeah. And it's like, when else do you have an opportunity to take a mini college course that you don't have to pay for, you know? Or when are you being intentionally exposed to new things in an in-person environment that isn't this just, in many ways, like one-dimensional digital space, which I think there can be really meaningful and nuanced conversations, but I do think you lose a lot in the comment section. You know, you're not always able to have as meaningful conversations as you would like in print. And so I really wanted to provide people a space where they could have these conversations, and once again, that trusted voice to kind of lead and facilitate.
And you're also just creating community. One, like you're like the event that I went to, like I sat at a table and I ended up having conversations with these other people, and we just ended up having different life conversations. And then before we knew it, like we were talking about different topics and what they were planning on doing. And I think that's another problem. Like you essentially like solve or help solve is like you're kind of bridging that community that you can't get from a screen, which yes, you can engage with the comments, but also like the comments are kind of rough. But you're having real human to human like interaction, and it's accessible. Like there's not like a college course, so you're not paying like tuition to learn these things.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I was so glad you could come and experience it, because it is something that is obviously very meaningful for me, and like something I put a lot of like love and labor into. So whenever I hear people enjoy their experience, but also people who have been like, I've come to 5 lectures, like that is a lot of trust that you place in me to create this environment and this experience for you every time. And like, that is very special.
Yes, girl. I also love that you make it feel welcoming and accessible. So like it's not in like a stuffy room or a conference room. Like it's at a bar. It's at, you know, it's at a brewery, or it's at a place that you would normally, you know, hang out and have conversations with your friends. So I really love that you were intentional about having it in places where normal conversations would regularly happen or occur, because it makes someone who maybe didn't go to college but also loves learning, or maybe someone who is nervous and been out of school for a while and they're kind of wanting to dip their toes back in. I think I'm someone, like my mom has worked in education, I have family in education. I truly believe that like education should be accessible to everybody, and it shouldn't be kind of like a boundary or something that like is gate kept, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I created the second course, it was very much rooted in my belief that education should be accessible to all people. That's why the events are free and open to the public. That's why, you know, we invite anyone to come and join us. And at one of our venues, Lefties, the kind of outdoor space is gated, which I know you're familiar with. You were there. But one of my favorite things to see is sometimes there will be people on the other side of the gate listening in, and I get to go and tell them, like, this event is free, you can come in, and they will like come in and join us. And that's really special, you know, to be able to invite people into a space that they're already welcome in, right? But we automatically assume there's some sort of cost or some sort of barrier, right? And we're sort of listening on the outside, and like to be able to invite people in is awesome.
That's what I love about Austin. Like I think like living in a city that's so vibrant, like this, like you have such big turnouts, and that's just from people who are like seeing your videos, seeing your ads. Like just think about so many more people who like maybe aren't on TikTok or Instagram, and like they're just as curious. So like I love seeing like I noticed that too last time, like people just walking from their car garage and like seeing someone speaking, they're like, what's going on? But kind of like more onto that, like at what point during the second course with all the lectures did you kind of like have that thought or notice like, oh wow, this is actually like really taking off?
Yeah. I mean, we were really fortunate that the first one really blew up.
Yeah.
Our first expert lecturer who really took a chance on us was
Yeah.
Emily Glankler. So she is a former social studies teacher in Austin ISD who now is a digital content creator, very much a historian. And her content is completely surrounding education. Like
Yeah.
she is educating people on things that you might not have learned in high school history, but you totally should have.
Yeah.
She gathers teachers from across the country, offers like resources and support. And so she's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I reached out to her in March, or earlier than March, but for the lecture in March, and was like, I am building this thing. I want to reimagine how and where adults are learning. This is completely accessible, free and open to the public. Like, would you be a part of it? Would you be our inaugural expert? And she said yes, was like incredibly gracious, super excited. And it ended up being, you know, I think like 160 people who ended up turning out for that lecture. And so many people found us even after that, just like from the TikToks that we posted from there. So I was really fortunate that that first event, I was able to really see, okay, there is a need and there's a desire for something like this. And then since then, you know, we've been able to see more and more people come out, or like, you know, consistent people who are coming back and being a part of the community long term.
I mean, there's obviously like a need, there's a demand, there's a desire to learn more. And like your first event caught fire, like really great and really well. How do you kind of choose your next topic, or how do you go about choosing speakers? Do you like hand select, or do you kind of think like, oh, I want to learn this, let me reach out to someone? Like, what is that thought process?
Yeah. You know, I'm fully the woman behind the curtain, right? So I think that part of it is, you know, my rabbit holes and curiosities, but we also have an email newsletter where when people join, they put in the things that they're interested in. And I take that personally. Like, I am very serious that what we provide are things that our audience is going to be interested in. And so we do have an application process. So people will submit their application to be a speaker. And so I really I go through every single one of those applications. And I'm also keeping in mind, right, what folks are telling me they want to hear about. So sometimes I will do outreach. Like, for example, Emily was someone who I was like, you are phenomenal and you must be a part of this.
Yeah.
Adam Powell, executive director of the Austin History Center
Shout out.
Association, shout out. He was someone who I also reached out to from his videos on Austin history. And as soon as we met, I was like, this is exactly, you know, the perfect fit, because he is just such a phenomenal teacher, truly, right? And person who just really knows about Austin history and cares deeply about that history as someone who grew up here. And so it was like such an honor to be able to have him be a lecturer. But then so many people have just found us organically. And so Michael Osborne, who you went and heard speak, is a great example of someone who, you know, reached out to us, put in an application. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, this is going to be something really cool in a podcasting media city like Austin.
Oh yeah, that's definitely going to be a hit. So kind of like having different speakers and being able to be a witness to a lot of speakers. What, in your opinion, having organized these makes someone a great speaker?
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of preparation that goes into making it seem effortless. And not on my part, like on our speaker's part, right? When they come up there and they're fluid and exciting and passionate, that is dedication and that is practice. And every single one of our speakers will say and has told me, like, I spent all day yesterday, you know, going over this again and again, getting my timing right and, you know, making sure I'm going through the slides and my pacing is good. And so when you look at them, you know, there's no feeling of it being rehearsed. There's no feeling that they're nervous or any feeling that they, you know, might have been doing this over and over again, that it's not like fresh and new and exciting, but it's that preparation. And I think that it's those steps of like what you do beforehand that really differentiates people who are great speakers from people who maybe are flying off the cuff a little bit, shooting from the hip, which I think you still can be a phenomenal speaker, but you know, it really requires you to know yourself, know your content, know your audience. And I really appreciate that audience engagement perspective, especially. And so when I meet with speakers, that's something I always say. I'm like, ask a question, right? Have folks raise their hand, take, you know, engagement from the audience, because people who come to these lectures and people who come to our events, I'm super fortunate, are like the most engaged. They want to ask.
And it was always my favorite in college. Whenever my professor, you could tell like they were obsessed or passionate about what they spoke about. Like I always loved someone whenever they nerd out about whatever they're talking about. Like that just excites me because I'm like, well, if you're excited to share it, I'm excited to receive it, you know?
And that's actually one of like the biggest comments we get when I'm like, what do you want to learn about? What are your interests, right? In our little form that we take. People are like, whatever somebody's passionate about.
Yes.
Like whatever somebody can passionately talk to me about, that's what I want to learn about.
Yeah.
And so that level of openness is also fun to play with our speaker lineup.
I agree. And I want to get into, because there's so many people that are coming to these events. I want to kind of get into this question or this thought of like, why are adults so bad at being curious right now? Like, what do you think like is behind that kind of like idea in today's society? Or do you agree with it or disagree?
Yeah. I think people are inherently curious.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that necessarily goes away.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's something to be said about the ease of access of information, right? Of artificial intelligence in like a very literal sense, right? The ability to consume this information and be a presumed expert, right? In your little corner of the internet. And maybe you're not necessarily the person who knows the most about it, who has all your facts straight. And so I think that people are curious, but sometimes they don't know what information to trust, right? Or they don't have a space to be able to explore those curiosities. If you're going to a job and you are a specialist in this one thing and you work from 8 to 5 and you have a 45-minute commute, which is probably what you're doing in Austin. Yeah. And you get home and you have these responsibilities, where is the space for you to play, for you to explore, for you to do this like deeper research that isn't just, the doom scroll of whatever the algorithm might be feeding you, right? Yeah. When do you have a chance to really chase your curiosities? And that's what I hope to provide for people, even if that's once or twice a month, is just a space where they can learn something new, but then also hopefully engage in conversation with other people. And maybe that takes them somewhere completely different. Yeah. And that's awesome, right? Yeah. But now you've learned something about yourself. And so I think people want that, but it can be hard to find.
And that's what I was going to ask you too, is do you think social media has like helped or hurt this like curiosity? Because obviously like we were talking about, like we can use TikTok to, learn something new or connect. That's how I found this event. But you can also, on the flip side, start doom scrolling or, go down a rabbit hole or hear other people's opinions who maybe aren't subject matter experts.
Yeah. I don't know if I would say like it's helped or hurt. I think it definitely has changed things, and I think it's pushed people to desire in-person community. Because, in an era where you can have fake videos and fake content and, misinformation, right? When you're face-to-face with someone, you can probably guarantee that they're not, generating their responses or putting things through a filter, right? Yeah. Like you expose people and have this level of vulnerability that you can't always replicate in an online space. And I think it builds a sense of trust and safety with people, that you're really out in the world. So I think there's always like pros and cons, but it has definitely changed, I think, people's desire and urges to be able to have something that exists outside of that.
Yeah, it creates community. It drives like in-person interaction. And you're absolutely right. Like I think, in-person conversations, you read the body language, you read the movements, you read, the soft, not spoken things that, you can't necessarily read with like a text or someone just responding with a meme. It removes all of that grayness. But kind of going back to your event specifically, like it's in person, you have people gather, and something that I love that you do afterwards is, you facilitate conversation. So it's not just a speaker, people ask questions, but then also you kind of encourage conversation and camaraderie at those tables or at those sections, that, normally like in a regular lecture or college course, like you just listen to the speaker and then you exit. Yeah. So like my question for you is like, why do you think people leave your events feeling like energized?
Yeah, I hope they do.
Yeah.
But I really do take a lot of responsibility when people come into the space and when they attend an event, and I always want people to feel so comfortable and so welcomed. And that starts with me like standing at the door and having people write their name on name tags and introducing, people who came solo to each other, because I know what it feels like to go to an event where you're promised community and networking or whatever, right? You're promising. And then you show up and you're like, am I in the right place? Am I doing the right thing? Am I, meeting people?
The awkward glances.
Yeah. Does everyone know each other? And I'm just kind of the odd man out. And so I think like a core component of that is being really intentional about ensuring that people do feel comfortable in the space and like understanding what they want. And so learning people's names, you know, making those connections early on and having the picnic table set up so people in many ways are forced to talk to each other, I think is a bit of a cheat code. But yeah, I think people want permission to go out of their comfort zone, to have better conversations. And when you give people a little bit of that and you say, turn to your neighbor and talk about your biggest takeaway from the lecture, people take that permission in many ways and they run with it, right? Because they're not suddenly, you know, the odd person or maybe the weird person who's trying to make conversation with their neighbor. Like, this is what you're here for. And so I hope that that is something that people have found really meaningful, and it's something that I, you know, have received pretty good feedback on. Because it's a really intentional part of the experience.
I have to agree, because like I've definitely like done solo things, like when I would push myself to try to like go out and like do things by myself, and like clearly it would be marketed as like community, but then there would be people like with groups that show up but they only talk to themselves, and I'm like, oh crap, like how are y'all, like how y'all do it, like you know, how's it going? And then I love that you kind of have those like kind of like icebreaker questions, and like it helps eliminate the awkwardness, and it kind of forces us to have conversation and like get to know each other.
And one of my favorite books is called The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker. And she talks about what it means to gather, why we gather, best practices for gathering, and like based on the types of event you host. And something she also talks about is like setting expectations for your attendees early on, right? So that starts with an invitation, the outreach. And so I think that's also something I'm really intentional about in that process, is like setting those expectations early, that when you come into this space, you are open-minded and respectful and comfortable with challenging and being challenged, right? In a way that still creates that comfortable environment and welcoming environment, that you are contributing and you're asking and you're inquiring, and you know, all the different ways that you can be curious. And so I think being really clear about that in my messaging, hopefully in my content, I think is a good way to make sure that the people you're bringing into your event are not just people who are, you know, there and maybe are not interested in being a part of that community, or maybe it's not even really for them, right? And because there was a lack of clarity on sort of the side of the advertising or whatever that might look like, but people who really get it and who want to be a part of it.
And it's the difference between being online and in person, whereas like online, you're just consuming, but with your events, like you're not just consuming, you're also kind of sharing your knowledge. There's like an exchange and back and forth rather than just like, let me consume and then go my own way. You're sparking conversation. People are leaving energized. They're coming in with different thoughts, whether they agree or disagree.
And it means a lot to me whenever people come. And I love when people are like, you remember me from last time? I'm like, of course I do. I remember all of you who are coming to these events, because like when you put stuff on and you see people respond to it and show up, like you remember that. And I know you get that as someone who's like creating this space.
For sure. I want to get into a new segment, so a different segment where we kind of bring into pop culture. So we're talking a little bit about the importance of pop culture, how we see it through an anthropological lens. So I want to say, like, if pop culture had college majors, what would you major in?
Oh, I would major in Real Housewives.
Okay, with a concentration in?
With a concentration in psychology, I think that.
Okay, or I mean like franchise or.
Oh, I was like, what can we learn from Real Housewives? Real Housewives of New York.
Okay.
Like original cast, or New York City.
OG cast.
Original cast, OG cast, is my bread and butter. And I think that it is just like a phenomenal look at early like socialites and high society in New York City, and like how that evolved over time with the introduction of like influencers, especially with new cast. So I think there's a lot to be learned, but I also will just like do a rewatch.
And you like, would you also think you'd be able to teach a class on it?
I think I would.
Okay.
I really
guest lecture. Okay.
I'm like, yeah. Come to the next second course lecture on Roni.
So follow up. Which celebrity could you surprisingly give an amazing TED Talk on?
Ooh. I do love celebrity culture.
It could be a celebrity or like a pop culture moment.
Yeah. Ooh, I am obsessed with those like pop culture YouTube recap videos.
Okay.
There's like a YouTuber, I think her name is Brie something, and she does like an hour-long YouTube video.
Like a deep dive.
Yes, like a deep dive on these
Okay.
pop culture moments. I am also, as a Bravo fan, I'm also a Vanderpump Rules girl.
Okay.
So I think like this first season Vanderpump Rules scandal of like Stassi, Kristen, and Jax, when Jax cheats on Stassi with Kristen.
Yes.
Like I think I could recite actually every episode that has that drama in it.
Yeah.
Similarly, Scandival.
Okay. Yes.
So which
Ari,
rocks the
shout out,
world.
yeah.
I could definitely give a lecture on going all the way back of like fan theories. Like,
That
we're
was
deep
such
in it.
that was such a golden time for like Vanderpump early seasons were so like so good, and Stassi and Jax, like that was all messy, which I loved. Yeah.
I know. I think it's like the very first episode that she has that famous quote that's like,
Yeah.
I am the devil and don't you forget it. And it's like just skyrocket.
Just like these poor like wait staff. I was always watching that being like, when do they work? Like, when are they work? Like, what do they do besides like drinking and sleeping with each other? Like, when are they actually like delivering plates? You know?
No, truly. And then they like are on the clock, but then they're talking and they're smoking outside. And I'm like, who's your table?
I didn't realize it was a real restaurant, and I was like, oh, maybe this is just like all fake.
Set.
It's a set. Yeah, exactly. I think I could give a TED talk on reality TV queen Tiffany Pollard, aka New York. Like,
so good.
From her genesis of like starting on Flavor of Love all the way to like her now, and just like how amazing she is. Like, I could give a course on that. Like, amazing icon queen, come on the podcast.
That is so good. And it does remind me, you should do a lecture on like characters or like guests on TV shows that ended up being like bigger than the program, you know?
Oh yeah.
Like I think of The Bachelor or like the Bachelorette franchises where the people they were dating like ended up basically being more famous than
Their
them.
own shows, yeah.
Or like Friend of on Real Housewives that like end up being, you know, like top dog, I guess.
Yeah.
That would be a lecture.
That's such a good like also like a trivia game too, like naming like as fast as you can, like rapid fire, like how many people were like out like stardom, like the main or like OG person. Like that's such a good thing. Like I'm gonna bring that back. Okay. Okay, so since this is inherently gay, the podcast, which queer icon do you think deserves an entire semester dedicated to studying?
Renee Rapp.
Ooh, okay. Tell us more.
So I am an OG musical theater girly.
Okay.
So I got to know Renee Rapp as an OG musical theater girly. And so seeing her go from a phenomenal Broadway run to truly being someone that like all the theater girlies were looking up to, her like first boyfriend and like them being a powerful couple on like the theater scene, to now just like her trajectory of being so mainstream, like vocals, you know, being in like the musical adaptation of Mean Girls. And really just like her role in culture more broadly. I feel like when women are apathetic or women are kind of adopting like an I don't really care what you say about me, I know who I am attitude, I think people are so quick to jump on that and to like label that as some sort of negative thing. But I think she really owns it. And I feel like she's someone, at least like outwardly, who doesn't really seem shaken by the noise.
I love it. I love her attitude. Yeah.
And I think it's incredible to like see her trajectory, because I feel like if you would look back on how I discovered her, like it really is just two completely different paths. But she has owned that with like so much grace and so much honesty and standing in her truth and being like, this is me and this is also me. And that's okay. And I can hold both of those people and I could still be like who I am today.
She's so authentic. Like I love that she like stands 10 toes down on like who she is, and like instead of making herself small, like she is like, no, she's actually louder with like, this is who I am. Like either like get with it or like see you later.
She's so funny, so talented. So I'm like, we can get into her personality and you know, in one of the other weeks or whatever in the semester.
Okay, last pop culture question. What fandom do you think has the smartest fans?
Ooh,
controversial.
That is controversial. Okay, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get canceled. Okay, I do have to give it to the Swifties.
Okay.
For the reason that they're doing like math. Like there's like math that's happening. There's like physics and things that are happening with them in order for them to unravel whatever's happening next.
The next
Taylor
rollout.
Swift. Yes. So I feel like, you know, there has to be some geniuses in that group who are able to really lead the pack in like all the puzzles that she's running.
They're doing equations. I remember seeing like a tweet, like they're saying like, oh, like this this song is 1 minute and 42 seconds. On her website, there's this color, and that's the color code of this one. This is her next album drop, and she's gonna have. I was like, oh
and then
my
they're
gosh.
right, and I'm like, okay, that's crazy.
It's the equate, like, honestly, like, the Swifties scare me. Like, I don't want to say anything too, like, controversial, because, like, I know they'll dox me. Like, just from the few things I've shared, like, I could be like, oh my God, like, love Taylor Swift, wasn't really feeling the song, and they just, like, DM me my address. Like, I definitely could not. But I agree with you. I think Swifties are pretty up there. Also, I think the Beehive, like, Beyonce fans, like, they are Beyonce's manager. Like, they're telling her when she's releasing music.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for, like, Act 3, like, by the way.
I think we all are.
Yeah.
I think we all are. And you know what? Maybe the Swifties will figure out when that's happening.
No, yeah, Swifties, we need an alliance.
Collab.
We need a merger, a collab. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so I want to move on from pop culture and do a really quick game.
Yay.
So this game is called Would You Take This Course? So your options are either I'm enrolling or absolutely not, and then just like explain quickly why.
Perfect.
Obviously, I think you would be an A student for this one. The psychology of reality TV.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah. No explanation needed. So just why Costco is a cult, parentheses, in the best way.
Ooh, yes. And I think anything could be a cult. So
Yes.
shout out the book Cultish if you haven't read it yet.
Yeah, that's right. Check it out. The history of gay bars or queer bars.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So much of like life as we know now in society and culture really started with conversations that were happening in queer spaces. So
love that. 100%. Love that. Okay, would you take this course? Why we still quote Mean Girls.
Oh. I feel like I am not still quoting Mean Girls.
Yeah.
I'm going to say maybe no.
Maybe no. Okay.
But my course is full. My schedule's full.
Yeah, you're already at 18 hours. Okay.
18 hours.
The Secret Lives of Pigeons.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Domesticated, now they're free.
That
like
whole
let's talk
thing,
about let's wake that up.
There's something going on with the pigeons. Yeah. Conspiracy theories that accidentally came true.
Oh, for sure. And there are so many, but also things we like think are conspiracy theories but really happened.
Okay, like kind of like the Mandela effect or something like that.
Well, basically it's like this thought that, people were crazy, but then, a lot of like things have been revealed since then of like things that have been declassified, and so people are now like, I kind of told you guys that this is happening. Not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but we're doing the research.
Listen, I'm already like I'm into conspiracy theories. I feel like I would skip on that class just because like I feel like I'd be more paranoid. Okay, can astrology be good marketing? Would you take that class?
Oh, interesting. I'd be interested in just an astrology class, but I've never seen the marketing angle. So I'll say yes to learn more.
The science of first impressions.
Ooh, absolutely. And I fully believe in that.
Okay. Next one, I feel like I would personally be a TA for this class. Why we love gossip.
Oh, yes. Gossip is also, the villainization of gossip is also rooted in misogyny.
Thank you.
So let's talk about that in the
Let's wake that up. Going back to this idea of curiosity and wanting to learn, I think like I always wanted to learn more just because I feel like I'm just nosy.
Yeah.
And I want to know why.
Oh, so true.
Yeah, I think that's why I was such a good student, because I was nosy. Intro to internet drama.
Oh, absolutely. But I'm in the advanced class.
Okay, AP.
I'm in AP.
Okay, AP drama. Okay, the evolution of memes.
Oh, yeah, I'm interested in that.
I feel like I'm so like far behind on memes. Like now TikTok is about stickers and
Is that not just a meme?
Yeah, but I feel very boomer about it. Like I don't know like what
the original.
I didn't know the whole my little cousin tried to do the six. I just like pushed him out of the way. I'm like, do not talk to me about that.
Yeah.
Okay, last course, why nostalgia is so powerful.
Oh, absolutely. And let's talk about the nostalgia and marketing, or marketing and nostalgia. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, absolutely.
I love that. Okay, awesome. So that was a fun game. I actually, now I'm kind of wishing those were real courses, because I would definitely take that, especially the gossip.
I know. You can tell how curious I am that every single one I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's talk about it right now.
I lit up when we talked about gossip. I was like, ooh, yes. Okay, so just kind of closing us out, what's one topic you'll never get tired of?
Ooh. I will never get tired of talking about the transformative power of education. And I think that's at the core of the second course, but more broadly, education is such a core tenet of our society. And so making sure more people have access to high quality education is like a personal passion.
Yeah.
And I think I will never get tired of talking about ways that we can make that better for all people.
I love that. Okay, so if you could inspire everyone listening to stay curious about one thing for the rest of their lives, what would it be?
Ooh. Your neighbors.
Okay, tell
like
me
people
more.
in your community. I think I'm always someone who's had like really big desires to make change in my community and improve outcomes and conditions for the people around me. But that requires like a deep knowing of the things that are really impacting each other. And so I think if we were all more curious about the people around us, right, and we're looking for those opportunities to know each other better, to learn things about each other, to connect, I think we would all be a lot better off.
I love that. Okay. And then obviously our podcast inherently gay. I always love asking our guests, what is so inherently true to you right now at this moment?
Yeah. I feel like we've talked a lot about like the curiosity angle. I think there's like an emotional sense to me right now, like an empathetic sense maybe that feels like very like inherent, where there's like so much happening, and I think I just have this desire to like be in community with people and like share in what they're experiencing, and that doesn't have to be struggle, like that can also be joy. And I think that that's inherent of like wanting to share with people.
Nice. I think mine would have to be what's inherently true for me is, I think joy right now and just basking in the idea of imperfection, like basking in the idea that like nothing is going to go as planned. You're just going to have to rock with the punches and just find moments of joy wherever you can, because we are stressful. We are living in this society at this day and age where everything is going on. I think stopping and enjoying the small moments, whether that be with your community or your partner or your colleagues, like I think finding that joy is like super powerful to ground us right now.
I love that. And I think that spoke something into me of like presence. Like I think when I was talking about like sharing with my community and like that joy and even that like struggle and sadness, like it's presence, you know, like being present and not being so occupied by other things that might be going on.
Yeah, or feeling the need to be busy, which I know I struggle with, but just being present, like it's super important. Yeah. But I mean, moreover, besides being present, I love this idea of curiosity that we talked about today. So if someone is interested in the second course, you know, where can they find you? Where can they find your events and all of the happenings around Austin?
Yeah, I would love for people to join us. Like I shared, every month is a new expert and a new topic. And so you can find what we're doing on TikTok or Instagram at the Second Course ATX. Second, fully spelled out. Some people do mix that up, which is understandable. And we are usually at Lefties on the last Wednesday of every month with our new topics and our new experts. And then we cycle through different venues, just, you know, depending on the vibes, depending on the space. So would love for folks to join us. You can find all of our events and everything we're doing on there. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today, Sydney. I'm excited to see all of your future events. Really quick before we go, if you could have any like celebrity or motivational speaker or just any like influential person guest lecture the second course, who would it be?
I will say my husband's answer is Charlie Crockett.
Okay.
And he has really been working at that of trying to like DM this man. I don't know if folks are familiar, but he is a country musician. He's originally from the Rio Grande Valley, which is really special for me. I'm originally from the Valley. And his just like trajectory and his career is so fascinating. He's someone who is like very true to who he is, and I think his music is just like so soulful and so representative of his experiences and kind of getting back to those original, you know, country roots of having, you know, music and lyrics that really tell you something. And so having him be able to come up and talk about his experience in that industry and in that world, especially as someone who has roots just like me, would be super cool.
Awesome. Well, who knows? Maybe they might come on like next year as like a special lecturer. So
I know, we'll check back in.
Yeah, check back in. If you're interested in attending events, make sure to check out the second course everywhere online. And you know, maybe you might see this country lecture. But until then, we'll see you next time. I'm Justin Dallas, and we'll see you at the next episode. Thanks, guys.